Ladies and gentlemen, I am confused, and I'm sure you are too. And if we're all confused, that must mean we're at the Matt and Eric Talk Twins podcast. Because let's be real, is there anything more confusing in your life right now than the Minnesota Twins? I would have to say no. Matt, how do you feel?
Yeah, man, I'm not confused, but just underwhelmed, I would say. Like I feel like we know what this team is and what it is not good. Despite, winning the series this weekend over a surprisingly good Cardinals team, they're still just kind of treading water. I think we're still just waiting for the young guys to come up, and we're going to have a lot of young guy talk on this one.
Yeah, I think that's going to be an commonly increasing trend as we get into the season, which makes a lot of sense because the further we go, the more call ups we get. But I was also just kind of thinking about that today. I'm like, damn, it's been a week of Twins baseball. I'm obviously excited to be here and recording and talking about it, but at the same time, kind of a bit of an underwhelming week overall, as you said. And I realized, wait, if that's the type of week I'm feeling about in June, imagine how this is going to feel come August, come September.
Yeah, I mean, especially if the Twins do what we expect them to do and sell off pieces. The one saving grace is all of our big prospects that we've been waiting on all year. By the time we get into August and September, there's not going to be any excuses for them not to be in the big leagues. And so at least that'll be some intrigue. I mean, right now, nobody really cares if Tristan Gray or Ryan Kreidler or Orlando Arcia perform well because they're not pieces of the future. We don't expect them to be good. Even if they are good, it doesn't really matter for this team. And at least when we get into the August and September, down the stretch, and we have the young guys up, we can at least see. Here's a guy we've been talking about for 2 years. What do we make of him? What are our first impressions? And do we think he can be a piece going forward? So it's definitely going to continue to be bad baseball, but at least we'll have things to look at.
I would actually like to inform the masses that Jeremy Zoll disagrees with that take. He clearly cares how Orlando Arcia is playing because, as we're going to get into our first news topic here, Orlando Arcia was DFA'd today, I believe, after the game to make room for Kyler Fedko coming up to the team. I would like to say get excited, but I don't know if that really warrants excitement. Do you feel excited, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, Kyler Fedko's a guy, he can probably be a short side platoon bat. He's absolutely demolished AAA the last couple of years. And he's a guy that can play all three outfield spots. He played some first base in the minors. He even played a couple games at second base this season. He can be an interesting right-handed bat that can kind of play all over a little bit. He's surprisingly quick. He's stolen 47 bases in the upper minors for the last 2 seasons. And in 426 career AAA plate appearances, he's slashing 278, 364, and 532 with 23 home runs. I will say it comes in a kind of inflated run scoring environment in AAA. And he's done the majority of that damage against left-handed pitching. So not a guy that you'd expect to play every day, not a guy who's a top prospect, but for a Twins team that has a lot of left-handed outfield bats, if he can be a short side platoon option, that's big for this team.
Yeah, I'm certainly excited to see it just because, I mean, fresh blood is about the only thing exciting that's going to be happening in Twins territory for most of this year. But I continue to think about the fit on this roster, and it feels like that's all we've been talking about all season. But I'm still a little confused on where he fits if the sundown is Orlando Arcia. Not that I'm saying that Arcia didn't deserve to be sent down, but Arcia was really only ever playing backup spare shortstop on days where they didn't want Trista Gray, mainly against lefties if they had Ryan Kreidler playing elsewhere. So it's not like Arcia was occupying a large role, and it's not like Fedko can take over any of the games and innings that Arcia was playing. So I'm still a little lost on the direction of this move.
Well, Arcia did play a couple of games at first base, and so that's another spot that Fedko can be a right-handed bat. But also, if you remember back to the original move that got Arcia into the big leagues, it was sending down Royce Lewis, right? So it was an infielder for infielder swap. But then to get Lewis back up to the big leagues, they DFA'd James Outman. And so the Twins have been playing kind of an outfielder short to make room for Lewis and also keep Arcia on the roster. And so now they can, send out Arcia, bring in Fedko, who's probably going to be a better bat and has a little bit more long-term utility. He can play the outfield. He can play some first base. His ability to play the outfield allows you to move Cody Clemens into play first some more if you want. It also allows you to not have to play Ryan Kreidler in the outfield, which means he can play shortstop against left-handed pitching. I think it does open up some other possibilities with this lineup.
Are you telling me you don't want to see Royce Lewis spend more time in center field?
Dude, apparently, Aaron Gleeman reported that he heard that Royce Lewis did tell the Twins that he was willing to play the outfield, and the Twins were like, "Nah, it's all right. We don't need to see that again."
Yeah. I mean, he's hot right now, and I would hate to see anything happen to disrupt that. Least of all, putting him back in the outfield, where he arguably did the most impact to his career trajectory. I think tearing that ACL and the outfield wall collision was really kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for his athleticism. But if it was already questionable fit before he tore his ACL in the outfield, it's only going to be more questionable after the second ACL tear.
Yeah, I'm not confident that Royce Lewis would be a more talented left fielder than Trevor Larnach at this point. Like, I think the foot speed's similar.
I'm going back to the same well that I did with James Outman. For one game, would you rather have Billy Hamilton or Royce Lewis in center field right now?
I mean, defensively, it's got to be Billy.
Yeah, but that's the thing.
Offensively, it's Royce hands. Well, what's Billy Hamilton's career batting line?
I have no idea. I know he's playing in the Mexican League. We can see.
Because Royce has been really bad at the plate recently. Okay, Billy Hamilton for his career is a 66 WRC plus hitter, which is roughly in line with what Royce Lewis has done over the last 2.5 seasons. However, this is now a 35, almost 36-year-old Billy Hamilton who has not played in the big league since 2023 and hasn't posted a league average batting line since his rookie year, where he played only 13 games and had 22 plate appearances. I'm going to take Royce. I think it has to be Royce at this point. Even when Billy played 119 games in 2019, which was 7 years ago, he put up a 49 WRC plus, was like an average-ish defender, and was with negative WAR. So I don't think he's any better than he was 7 years ago.
I was just looking up his Mexican League stats because I'm like, oh, maybe he's mashing in the Mexican League. You know, that would suggest that he can maybe hang it as like a 600 OPS hitter in the MLB. Through 18 games and 68 plate appearances for Jalisco in the Mexican League, he has a 451 OPS this season. So he can't even hack it in the Mexican League. I think I would take probably half a dozen pitchers on the Twins roster right now to be a better hitter than him.
Yeah, to be fair, the Pecos League is not horrible, but it's also an inflated run scoring environment because they play at high altitude. And so if he's not hitting at all in that environment, no shot in organized pro ball in the U.S.
So anyways, we hopefully don't have to see either of these options come to fruition because we have Cody Clemens to play center field. I'm actually not familiar with Fedko's game. Is he a center field fill-in if we need?
Yeah, so he played center field in the minors. Like, he's played center in AAA, but he's kind of a bigger guy. He doesn't move the greatest. He's like a real stretch in center. And so I think the Twins would probably prefer Clemens. weirdly. It's so weird to think of Clemens as like not a stretch in center field. But the Twins would definitely prefer like Buxton, Clemens, or Kreidler in center over him. But like he could do it.
I wonder if there's a world where, at least against lefties, that they move Austin Martin out to left and put Fedko in right.
Yeah, I think that makes
Or, I
sense.
mean, just put Fedko in left.
The thing is, like, I don't think the Twins are really care a whole lot about Austin Martin playing left versus playing right, but they've been playing Martin in right just because they don't want to mess with Trevor Larnach, and Larnach's used to playing left field. And so I think in their ideal circumstance, they would put the guy with the stronger arm, who's definitely Fedko, in right field, move Martin over to left. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing to me, because I was just trying to rack my brain and figure out, like, who has been the platoon bat with Larnach since Martin became the everyday right fielder, and there hasn't really been a singular stand-in guy filling in as a platoon bat in left field. So I do see like a path for Fedko to be getting pretty decent regular playing time pretty quickly, at least.
Yeah, I mean, technically the Twins could have done this prior to this move, but it would have been really weird. But now it makes it pretty easy for the Twins to field an all right-handed lineup against left-handed starters. You know, left to right in the outfield, you can go Martin, Buxton, Fedko. In the infield, it can be Lee, Kreidler, Keishel, and Lewis. With, I mean, pick your choice of Caratini or Alex Jackson behind the plate with Josh Bell at the DH. So, I mean, that helps. Having just righties in there against a lefty is better than the Twins have had in recent years, but there's also still a lot of pretty bad hitters in that group.
Yeah, I at least appreciate this for Derek Shelton, who has been continuing to be very active with his bench compared to what I feel like Rocco would do under his years in Minnesota. Granted, Rocco had better teams and therefore less reason to be so aggressive with pinch hitters, but whether you like the strategy or not, it's pretty regular to see Shelton unloading the entire bench over the course of a 9 inning game. So it's nice to see a more reasonably balanced team for him to work with.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, yeah, you're absolutely correct. Like, Rocco had better rosters, he had more established players that you were just going to leave in regardless. But when needed, I feel like Rocco did utilize platoons pretty effectively. I mean, we saw that in left field pretty consistently. Like it would be Trevor Larnach, and then you pinch hit Kyle Garlick for him when a lefty comes in. Or we even saw that one game. I forget what the context was, but Eddie Julian started the game and played defense in the top of the first. And the Twins got to their starting pitcher early, and they brought in a left-handed reliever, and the Twins pinch hit for Eddie Julian in the bottom of the first inning.
I do
so
remember that.
yeah, so Julian started and played an inning of terrible Eddie Julian defense, and that was his entire contribution to the game. And so, like, I don't know, Rocco did utilize platoons, but I think he had a lot less reason to need to.
It does certainly help in Derek Shelton's case when the guys that you're calling on to pinch hit in these situations are actually reliable to get you a hit. And we're starting to see that again with fan favorite Royce Lewis, who has made his return to Minneapolis from Minneapolis and is, at least for the first, week and a half he's been up, hitting the lights out of the ball again in Target Field. Do you buy it this time, though, Matt?
I buy it enough to where I could tell a contending team he's back with a straight face and try to get a decent trade package. Like I remain out of the Royce Lewis business. Yeah, I know he's talented. It does look like he's made actual mechanical tweaks in AAA. He's clearly hitting the ball a lot harder. He looks more comfortable in the box. At the same time, only 2 years of control remaining. He's still defensively limited. You still have a large sample size of him being a poor hitter. He's going to be in arbitration this year. I think it's a great time to cash in on Royce Lewis. You hope he keeps hitting for a month, and then sayonara, Royce.
You know, they had a replay montage of Royce's celebration after hitting that little bloop single to tie the game today against the Cardinals. And I couldn't help but think, man, this is probably the first time I've seen Royce Lewis smile this season. I think that sums up his season as a whole and the direction it's been headed for both him and the Twins. And we'll talk about this in a little bit, but with the Twins probably being close with a lot of their prospects moving on up, they are great contenders to be the team that gets the trade deadline kicked off earlier this season. There's always going to be some more low wattage deals towards the start of July for teams that have a very specific need in mind and a player that does not need to have a very diverse set of skills to fill that role. And I feel like the Twins have a lot of those types of candidates to get traded. So it makes sense for many reasons for them to get moving on the trade market.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that happen already. The Phillies lost Adolis Garcia, maybe for the year with a torn lat, and they immediately went out and traded for Derek Hill from the White Sox. Pretty minor deal, but something that definitely helps out. The Phillies and the White Sox get a couple interesting prospects without giving up anything really of note for their future. The Twins could be a team that does that, although I would counter with who wants any of these players. I mean, Ryan Jeffers, obviously a big trade piece. He's also hurt. He's not going to get dealt until he's back. Buxton, we have no indication that he's willing to waive his no trade clause. And also, that's a move that you'd wait until closer to the deadline to make happen. Same thing with Joe Ryan. Probably not making that move early. You're waiting till the deadline, getting a bidding war going. So, someone going out of their way to pick up negative zero point 0.8 war Josh Bell, or do we have Cody Clemens believers out there? Is someone really chomping at the bit to make Trevor Larnach a strong side platoon bat? I mean, maybe, but I don't know.
I actually think that Cody Clemens is the most realistic of all those ideas at this point because I do, especially with him moving to center field, see an avenue where a team just wants a weak side platoon thumper. I mean, this archetype has kind of been out of the league for a while ever since you had the universal DH implemented, but one of those guys on the weak side that just goes up there and is just going to crush the absolute hell out of the ball. And if he doesn't, might draw a walk maybe like 20% of the time and then strike out a ton. I I'm definitely romanticizing Cody Clemens to look like Adam Dunn right here. But if you squint really hard, like really, really hard, I think you could sell a team on it.
Okay, so you said a strong side's like masher that hits home runs and can walk 20% of the time. First of all, 20% walk rate is like 2001 Barry Bonds. Like that is insane. Cody Clemens career 6.5% walk rate. He is a free swinger, that's for sure. He also career 420 slugging percentage in over 1,000 plate appearances, only 43 home runs for an 89 WRC plus. I think you're really gonna have to do your best used car salesman to get a team to bite on that.
But he is peaking at the right time, and sometimes that's all you really need around the trade deadline. If he can do this for another like 3 weeks, push us to the end of June, start of July. I mean, he's already at 10 home runs. I think he has what, five over the last week and a half. If he's sitting at like 15ish by the start of July, I think there's a team that could gaslight themselves into believing that, hey, we're about to get a 30 home run hitter at the trade deadline.
Sure, but also I don't know. It also gets to a point where there might be a team that's willing to take Cody Clemens because he is, 1.5 war bench bat. But if you're the Twins, there's not really a huge incentive to move on from him. As we've established, this lineup is pretty abysmal. And so just having a competent hitter, I mean, it's not like he's exactly tearing the cover off the ball. He's a 119 WRC plus on the year. He's been worth 1 WAR, and he is the Twins' third most valuable hitter. So he's not great. He is one of their best options. He is under team control for 3 more seasons after this year. He's not going to be expensive because he does not have a good career track record. I think, honestly, with Clemens, it makes sense for the Twins to just hold on to him, let him be a bench bat, kind of a helpful utility piece on probably some continually bad teams for the next couple of years. Just because I think teams aren't going to be, banging down the door to go trade legitimate prospects for Cody Clemens.
You just blew my mind telling me that 30-year-old Cody Clemens still has 3 more years of team control.
He sure does. He debuted at 26, and man, did he use up his options quickly, because no team really wanted 26-year-old Cody Clemens in the big leagues.
Do you think he gets to the big leagues if he isn't Roger Clemens' son?
Let me look at his minor league numbers. I remember being pretty underwhelmed.
They're definitely, like, from getting drafted all the way up, there has to be that lingering bias of, oh, he's Cody Clemens' son. Like, this is baseball right here.
Yeah, I mean, he was a 3rd-round pick, so, like, decent amount of investment in him. And then 134 WRC plus in 2018, 114 in 2019. Then COVID season didn't play. 2021 went to AAA, put up a 107 WRC plus, like held his own in the upper minors, I guess. 2022, 125 WRC plus, and then he got his cup of coffee. Yeah, I mean, he was fine. He was good enough. I think he probably wouldn't have been. There's a lot of players who are drafted lower who perform a lot better, who wouldn't have gotten moved up the organizational ladder like he has. But I think that's a product of him being a 3rd-round pick more so than being Roger Clemens' kid.
I do not disagree. And I also don't really disagree about your thoughts on the Twins trading him. I don't think it needs to happen or necessarily should. But as we saw last year, if it's not nailed down to the boards, it's going to get sold. And I don't think this year's going to end up being any different. I mean, like, he wasn't the centerpiece of the trade, but man, even Ty France got traded last year. Like, that's how desperate the Twins were to get anything and everything off their roster.
I think Ty France was traded in the same way that Randy Dobnak was, where it's like, someone will take the $700,000 we owe this guy. Sure, see ya.
Yeah, but are you not 100, or are you not at least a little uncertain that they won't treat Cody Clemens the same way?
Yeah, but Cody Clemens is making the league minimum and is productive and under control. Ty France was unproductive, making slightly more than the league minimum, and was, a free agent at the end of the year. Like, they had no reason to hold on to him.
Yeah, that's Gold Glove finalist Ty France too.
That's Gold Glove winner Ty France.
Did he win it last year?
He sure did.
That's insane.
The Twins have won the Gold Glove at first base each last 2 years with Carlos Santana and Ty France. And until he started adventuring in center field, Cody Clemens was leading Major League Baseball first baseman and defensive runs saved. The Twins might just be really good at first base defense, like developing defenders at first. Because also, before Ty France came to Minnesota, he was a negative defender in Seattle. So there's a competitive advantage.
And I mean, hey, clearly it survived the Derek Shelton regime. I don't even know what coach first base defense would fall under, but I know the Twins didn't fire the entire staff when Baldelli left.
Yeah, it's probably Ramon Borrego because he's their infield coach. But also, I don't know how much he does this with all the players. It's probably Royce Lewis specific. But Justin Morneau was giving a crash course to Royce Lewis on how to play first base. Maybe he is involved somehow. I don't know. I think probably the Twins just go, here's how you can position yourself at first to get to a lot of balls to your right that a lot of teams. Okay, here's how I envision this. And I have not looked at the numbers to back this up. This is purely anecdotal and me watching the game. But I think the Twins first baseman tend to play further off the line than most teams in baseball. So they get to more balls in the hole that a lot of other first basemen wouldn't even try for, wouldn't be able to get to. in fielding metrics, that looks great. It looks like you have a super rangy first baseman that's making all kinds of plays. But in practice, it's really just we position this guy 3 feet further to the right, and we're going to give up some hits down the line because of it. That's what I think probably happened here. That is without any statistical basis. But I would imagine it's something like that, some sort of tweak for how the Twins position first baseman that's different versus how the rest of the league does it. And that's why our first basemen are ranking highly in defensive runs saved.
So I don't think anybody really understands exactly how defensive metrics work, even the people who make them. But in my mind, if that were happening, wouldn't the fielders be getting equally discredited for those balls that are getting down the line that they aren't getting to? Like, yeah, they would be making more plays onto the field side of their position, but it would be, in my mind, balanced out by all the plays they're not making down the line that, if anything, should be more routine and are almost always going to be more damaging.
Thing is, that's assuming that every part of the field gets an equal distribution of batted balls, but like directly down the line probably doesn't get as many batted balls as, more up the middle in the hole. Also, ideally, you'd have your first baseman playing at a spot where the absolute limit of his range most of the time is the foul line, and then he can extend as far over towards second base as possible. I think probably a lot of teams leave some low hanging fruit on the tree by playing their guys too close to the line so that their like effective range, like the balls they could get are to the line and past the line, and they're limiting some of that ability to range, to like the 4 hole to get a ball because they're playing too close to the line. But yeah. Anyways, this has been a long rant about random first base defense for guys who don't even play for the Twins anymore.
To be fair, the rant I was about to go on, just because you mentioned Marno and it sparked a memory of what I was thinking about listening to the game today. I want to hijack the pod for a second to give Glenn Perkins his props. I really appreciate what he brings to the booth, because you can tell that he's a very, not necessarily analytically minded person, but like he definitely has a pretty good understanding of, like the biometrics, the mechanics, like the deeper machinations that go into pitching that a lot of teams are starting to explore, which to me is impressive because he pitched at a time when teams did not really care about that. And that was something that I feel like players had to really seek out more on their own terms to try and understand. But I mean, he also like was one of the better closers in baseball for a while for a reason. So I've been really appreciating what he's been bringing to the booth recently, especially with the Twins parading so many different pitchers who are all at such different parts of their career, because I feel like Perk has just been able to give a lot of insight from pretty much career to career.
Yeah, I do love the Twins transition to a very new school, younger, recently retired broadcast crew. I don't love Trevor Plouffe in the booth, but he's at least interesting and fun. And I think Morneau and Perkins give really good insights routinely, both on the TV side and the radio side. I especially am enjoying less Dan Gladden. I'm not a Dan Gladden fan. I don't need to hear about the 87 to 91 teams. Dan, I do not care. Why do you still have long hair? Let's stop living in 30 years in the past and talk about the game in front of us.
I'm also
I
gonna
don't need to hear about Al Newman on the broadcast. That ceased being relevant 25 years ago, Dan.
I'm also gonna ding. I believe it's Royce Molly that they've had do a good handful of games in the past few years for being just as slow and boring in the booth. Like, to me, when people talk about how boring baseball is, that's exactly what I picture. Like, yeah, if I had to watch a game with Royce Molly in the booth, I would also be pretty bored.
Yeah, I do. Okay, for older guys, guys who've been around for a long time, played in a different era, I do think Paul Molitor is still interesting. I think he still brings some good insights, and I enjoy listening to him. He's a good change of pace.
I agree, but I think a lot of that is because he came back and did time as manager. I think that being involved in a more modern clubhouse has definitely enabled him to avoid similar fates of teammates from his time.
Yeah, totally fair. Okay, so my favorite resource for researching prospects for a while has been Fangraphs. I think I really like the work that Eric Long and Hangen does, and then a couple years ago when he was still at Fangraphs, Kylie McDaniel, I thought they have really well researched, well written insights into players. I think they give pretty comprehensive insights into what we can expect from these guys. And I think just anecdotally, I've seen a lot of their off consensus takes tend to be true. And I think it's interesting. They just dropped their Twins top prospects list, I think a couple days ago. Yeah, on June 12th. And I think there are some big surprises with their top prospects list. First of which is that the Twins have 6 top 100 prospects, but I guarantee you it's not the 6 guys that you would expect, and they're not going to be ranked in the order that you would expect. So number 1, we have Walker Jenkins. I think he comes in at, let me look,
34.
Yeah, 34 overall. He's a 50 future value grade, so that's not a superstar. That's just like a good everyday player. It's a lot lower than industry consensus. Number 2 is Kalen Culpepper at 58. Then it's Kendry Rojas at 75, Eduardo Tayit at 85, Connor Prelip at 89, and Twins' second-round draft pick from last year, Riley Quick, at 95. Now, the big riser here, of course, is Riley Quick. He's ranked ahead of a lot of other interesting Twins arms. He's all the way up in that 50 future value tier. He's pitched really well in the minors so far this year. He's shown a well-rounded pitch mix. He's throwing hard again. He could be a guy that the Twins slow play and build back up as a starter. He could move quick and probably be an effective reliever within the next year. But I think that was the big thing that stands out to me. Eric, anything on this list that you want to talk about?
I want to talk about Emmanuel Rodriguez getting dropped to 8th and getting a 45 future value. We're talking like we got him in the Hendry Mendez and Merrick Houston tier. I don't understand it. I don't understand how you're going to drop a guy when he has elite production and has displayed multiple like truly elite tools. Like his batting vision is a truly elite tool. I don't think his power, his raw power, is truly elite, but I think he's got probably plus bat and plus power and plus speed if he can stop getting injured. And he's been continuing to put it all together at AAA this year when he's been healthy. And they just all of a sudden decide to drop him off a cliff.
So I think there's 2 things. The when he's healthy does a lot of heavy lifting when we're talking about Emmanuel Rodriguez. This guy who's never played more than 100 games in a season since signing out of the DR in 2019. So that's a big thing to consider. Number 2, the reason they have him so low is because on the 80-20 scale, they have his hit tool at a 20, which is something you usually see as like true 18-year-olds like in rookie ball. It's like if this guy played in the big leagues right now, what would his hit tool be? That's the only time you see 20s, and that's Emmanuel Rodriguez's present hit tool. Long term, and they see that only going up to a 30. So they definitely believe the swing and miss is going to continue to be an issue. He's going to strike out a lot, and that's really going to be the downfall of him. I will say, I have heard and seen a lot of industry folks, and I've heard that there's a lot of teams who view Emmanuel Rodriguez as similar just because he does have such a unique profile. There's a lot of skepticism that it'll work. However, there's an equal number of teams who say everything else in this profile is so good, it doesn't matter, and this is a top 20, top 30 prospect in baseball. And so, I mean, given the fact that he's still on this team, I think the Twins probably are one of those teams that view him as a real elite prospect, and that's where I tend to land. But I can definitely see, why people would be hesitant on him.
At the same time, He's still only 23, hasn't even played 100 games at the AAA level, and has dropped his strikeout percentage in each of his last 3 seasons, getting it to under 30% this season. Obviously, that's still a really low bar. A 28% strikeout rate is going to be hard to carry at the MLB level, but there's a lot of reason to believe that he can continue to get that down and that it won't matter with, like you said, the eliteness of all the other tools.
I will say there's a difference between carrying a 28, 29% strikeout rate in the big leagues versus having a 28, 29% strikeout rate in AAA. I think we could pretty easily see that jump up into the low to mid 30s of the big league level against higher level arms. And that does become problematic really quickly. I think I said it this offseason. I stand by it. I think the comp for Emmanuel Rodriguez is like early career Joey Gallo. Take a lot of walks, hit a lot of home runs, play very good defense. He's going to strike out too much, and that's just what you're going to have to deal with. But Joey Gallo was, a 3 to 5 WAR player for a number of years in Texas. So if that's the outcome for Emmanuel Rodriguez, he's definitely more of a 50 or a 55 future value guy instead of a 45.
100%. And we all can just pray that he does not get traded to the Yankees.
Okay, a couple other guys I think are interesting. You talked about Hendry Mendez coming up. They have a 60 on Hendry Mendez's hit tool, a 60 on his raw power, and a 40 on his game power. I think that makes sense. Based on what we've seen from Mendez, he's tearing up AAA right now, but he's still running an insanely high ground ball rate. He hits the ball very hard, but often he punishes it straight into the dirt and it rolls through for a single or gets gloved by an infielder. As he gets into the majors, you face better pitching, you hit into better defenses. It becomes harder and harder to be a successful hitter with, a 50% plus ground ball rate. But I do think it's interesting what we've seen out of him so far this year. And I think that's been a big success story for the Twins so far from last year's deadline. Yeah, I think it's also worth noting. I mean, Hendry Mendez now the Twins' 9th-ranked prospect for 2 months of Harrison Bader, who the Twins signed in March. So, I mean, even if Harrison Bader, like he was really productive with the Twins, but also just trading the $8 million they paid for Harrison Bader for a top 10 prospect, great value.
If I'm not insane, I'm pretty sure they paid Bader $3 million. And then they would have traded him in early July, so prorated he would have been paid maybe like 1.3 million by the Twins.
I think he had a mutual option for this year for like $3 million. I'm pretty sure in total the Twins paid him like 10 mil last year. The Twins paid him 6.25 million last year.
Either way, to get any sort of value out of a guy that we signed in like February just to be our yearly annual Buxton backup is such a steal, let alone to get a guy who's become a top 10 prospect and looks like he could now be a legitimate major league contributor one day. It continues to help last season's trade deadline look a little rosier. And I do think there's a world where by the time all of these guys, like in 10 years, when we can look back on how not only the careers of the guys who traded for have developed, but the careers of the guys who traded away have panned out, that we could be looking at this trade deadline ultimately as a win still.
Yeah, I mean, just to highlight some of the guys that the Twins brought in at the deadline, our number 3 prospect, Kendry Rojas, number 4, Eduardo Tait, number 9, Hendry Mendez, number 12, Ryan Gallagher. Then we have to scroll a little bit. Not at the deadline, but in the Rule 5 draft, trading Andrew Susac. The Twins got their number 21 prospect, Miguel Caraballo. That might be it. That might be all the guys we got. Garrett Horn at 43. He's the guy they got back for Danny Coulomb. And Enrique Jimenez at 46, the guy that they got back for Chris Paddock. And so they did do quite a bit of work restocking the farm system. This obviously is not including guys like Taj Bradley, Mick Abel, Alan Roden, who they acquired but aren't prospects anymore. So overall, I think the haul that the Twins got at the deadline is looking better by the day. And you can see the vision here where these guys can turn into future building blocks and long term contributors. So I also think it's interesting that the Fangraphs team seems to be a lot lower than I would be on Dason Hill and Charlie Soto. These are a couple of young guys in high A that we talked about as future impact starters over the offseason. They've both had really rough 2026s. So Dason Hill has sustained his large velo bump since the draft. He's now flashing 3+ pitches, but control is a major concern for him. He's walking way too many guys. He's an ERA over 7 in high A. Obviously not what you want to see, but he's still only a 20-year-old guy. He's 6'5". He's going to be, I think, kind of a longer term project, which is what we expected coming out of the draft from Hill. And, he has a lot of length and limbs to get under control and to get into the strike zone. And so I think it's not surprising that he's struggling to throw strikes, but the quality of stuff is so good that I think if he can even develop into a below average strike thrower, he has a future as a good but volatile mid rotation guy or a potentially elite bullpen arm. I think you can say a lot of similar things about Charlie Soto. He's been hurt for most of this year, but he's a guy that has a really hard fastball getting up over 100. He also flashes a plus changeup. He's shown some decent command at times, but still a little bit of a work in progress. The Twins also tweaked his fastball shape before his injury last year, and he looked truly dominant before getting injured. I think if he's healthy, he could be a big climber when we look back at this list in a year. Eric, anything else you have on any of these prospects?
I was just going to talk about how I like the Twins continuing to stack their prospects into what they believe will result in successful production. Whether it actually does or not, we'll have to wait and see. But for as much as we talk about the Twins' fascination with taking a sure-handed defensive first shortstop out of college with their first round pick every year, I can't imagine there's a whole lot of other organizations that boast 3 different pitchers who are 6'5" or taller in their top 15 or 20 or so. And this one to me makes a lot more sense. It just by nature, big guy creates more momentum, can generate more force. It worked with Bailey Ober to some extent. I mean, it did, and then it didn't, and then it did again. Jury is still out. But Bailey Ober is also considerably less talented than the rest of these guys and did not have the stuff that they did. So I think it's a bit of a different challenge, but it's the same mold. I just think it's good for organizational continuity. Guys get more reps with guys who are doing similar things, who are built in similar ways. That makes it easier for players to compare notes, to help each other, to give each other, kind of tips, tweaks, reminders. It also helps the coaches. They're generally, it's the same idea of you practice one kick 10,000 times. It'll be a lot stronger than 10,000 kicks you practice one time. The Twins are building brick by brick their way, and hopefully it's going to start delivering soon.
Yeah, I mean, we've already seen it happen, right? Like, for years, the Twins have found random, big, tall right handers from small, mid major schools and turned them into big league players. We've seen that continually happen with guys like Zebby, Ober, Festa. Now we're seeing it with Andrew Morris. On top of that, guys who haven't necessarily panned out as well, but are still kind of kicking around. John Klein, CJ Culpepper, just to name a few. Like, they have found a bunch of guys that they've been able to develop some velo in, get their raw stuff up, and turn into potential major league contributors. I would say the Twins don't have many areas organizationally where you can say they are clearly above average especially in the development side, right? Like they've really struggled to develop hitters at all levels. They've really struggled in the international market. They've had a very hard time developing players internally. Everywhere except for the pitching side, I think we're continuing to see that in the Twins top prospects list. Like most of the guys we're most excited about are pitchers, and I don't think that that is a coincidence.
Yeah, but if you're gonna have success developing one side of the ball, I think as a team I would rather be good at developing pitchers because they're, for one, generally more expensive, I would argue. I mean, I think if you're very elite hitters are going to be more on the top end. We've seen that with Soto, with Trout, with Judge, Anthony Rendon. I mean, I think he's probably got still what, a top 10 contract in MLB history.
By annual value, probably.
But I mean, we're seeing guys like even Framber Valdez got what, 30 million a year, coming off some pretty good but not particularly elite seasons with Houston, being a little older and carrying some pretty significant character concerns. I think that the middle two-thirds of pitchers get paid a lot better than the middle two-thirds of hitters do. So anytime you can develop your pitchers organically, you're going to be saving the most money, which is really important for a team trying to spend like the Twins.
Yeah, I mean, pitching's always in demand. There's always a shortage league wide. And, we've seen teams like the Guardians or the Tampa Bay Rays, who are just consistently very good at developing arms, be long term sustainable contenders just because they have stronger pitching than the rest of the league, and they have pitching for cheap, and then they're able to trade those pitchers when they're getting to the end of their control window, recoup some hitter value, and then rinse and repeat, and they have just a good enough offense to keep them afloat. I think one more thing that I found interesting with this Twins top prospects list, the Twins number 19 prospect, Kalai Rosario, he was their second round pick a few years ago. He's a guy that people were pretty excited about. He's had some ups and downs, but he's now in his third season at AA. He has played 240 games in AA. He's 24 years old. And you might think, well, this guy's definitely not a prospect. He's flamed out. He's stalled in AA. No. Kalai Rosario has put up WRC pluses of 101, 131, and 127 the last 3 years in AA, including last year where he hit 25 home runs and stole 32 bases. He has warning signs. He strikes out a lot. He's not the most polished defender. Yes, he's an imperfect prospect. But at some point, he's played 240 games at AA. He can no longer keep playing at AA. Like that, there's nothing more that you're learning about Kalai Rosario by continuing to run him out there. And at least with him being the Twins' number 19 prospect, right around guys like Gabriel Gonzalez and Kyler Fedko, there's reason to see what he can do at a higher level. And I hope that with Fedko now moving up to the big leagues, the Twins use that as an opportunity to have Kalai Rosario fill that same role in AAA and at least see what he can do. He's 24 in AA. We got to give him a shot at some point.
So Kalai Rosario always sparks a memory of a similar player from a little before him in my mind. And I thought it was really funny that you brought up Kalai Rosario because this was the last guy I was going to bring up talking about prospects. This guy doesn't really count as a prospect anymore. He's 27 years old, one of the most feared first basemen in UNC
Stop.
Chapel
He's not
Hill
good.
history. But like, Aaron Sabato is absolutely destroying AAA right now. Josh Bell looks like hot garbage. And I'm not even saying I believe in Aaron Sabato and think that like this is a breakout at 27, but like we should probably see him over Josh Bell at some point this year, right?
Strong disagree. Josh Bell's struggling so far this year, but he does have the track record as a above average big league hitter. We know that he's streaky. We know that he has ups and downs. Aaron Sabato just has a lot of downs. Like, it's not good. Aaron Sabato, up until last season, he started last season in A ball, first of all. He played 39 games in AA. And then in a full 65 games in AAA last year, he was an 86 WRC plus hitter. This year, yes, he does look a little bit better. He's cut his strikeout rate down to still 25%. He's hitting for some power, has a WRC plus up at 139. But for his career, he has barely ever been an above league average hitter at any level. And this is as a guy who was a 22-year-old college star, first baseman, first round pick. Like, he needed to mash. He has seldom ever mashed in the minors. I have very, very little faith in Aaron Sabato, and I do not think he warrants a big league job at any point, under any circumstances.
It just kills me because I was so bought in. I remember seeing this guy. I'm like, he's just a tank. He's a mountain of. You want to talk about moonlighting as Adam Dunn? Aaron Sabato was the guy that I looked at, and I'm like, oh, this is the big man of my childhood. The guy that will walk up there and either delete this baseball or strike out in under 5 pitches. And I would guarantee, I would bet on that every at bat, and I would be one of the most lucratively successful bettors ever.
For context, Aaron Sabato, with this edition of the top prospects ranking, Sabato did sneak back into the Twins top 50, but prior to this, he hadn't been ranked on a Twins top prospects list since 2023. So he went 3 full years as a non-prospect. And even now, where is he on this list? He's not even in the top 50. He's an honorable mention. What's the category they put him in? Too many strikeouts. Okay, that's fitting. He is among guys like Billy Amick and Quentin Young in the too many strikeouts category. So still not a top 50 prospect for the Twins. And also, the fact that they have these other prospects of note that appear on these lists. Aaron Sabato went 3 years without even being an other prospect of note. And so I think we can pretty well say that ship has sailed.
Everything in me wants to put down $20 right now on Aaron Sabato playing a major league game in 2027 or in 2026. I mean,
I bet that he won't. I will bet you $20 he does not play a major league game in 2026.
I do not have it in my heart. Actually, before we move on though, I did want to talk about Gabby Gonzalez also getting dropped to, like, where is he? Yeah, 18th on this list. He's a spot right ahead of Kalai Rosario, and they've dropped him all the way down to 40 future grade, not even 40 plus. I mean, it hasn't been pretty this year, but I would still like to believe that we'll see him more prominently at the major league level in the second half.
I think Gabby Gonzalez is the exact type of player that gets kind of overrated just because he makes a lot of contact. It's a lot of very weak contact. He's not a good defender, but he looks smooth in the outfield. He can't really run. Like, he looks like a ball player. He takes at bats where you go, man, he just hits everything. He sprays the ball around the field. But you look and it's like he hasn't hit the ball with much authority. Yes, he looks kind of smooth in the outfield, but he just doesn't get to balls that a normal outfielder would. He's probably just a short side platoon bat, a guy that you maybe feel okay giving 200, 250 at bats to knock around lefties, occasionally start against a righty, and probably is never a full-time player in his career. And I think that's the exact same role that we just talked about for Kyler Fedko, who's ranked one spot ahead of him, and the same thing that we could imagine Kalai Rosario doing, who's ranked one spot behind him. And so, yeah, there's not that many spots for right-handed hitting, corner outfield only guys who can't really hit righties. And I think the Twins will end up with one or two of these guys, and the other ones probably won't have much of a big league career.
Yeah, I guess it is noteworthy that the Twins have previously called up Gonzalez, did let him play. I think he got into 2 games and had 4 at bats total, something like that. But had a need for a corner outfielder, right-handed hitting corner outfielder, and they decided to go with Fedko this time instead of Gabby Gonzalez. And I don't necessarily blame them. It's not something that I saw the call up and immediately was like, wait a second, why is this not Gabriel Gonzalez? I think there's other guys that are going to warrant that soon. I think Alan Roden, once he's healthy, is deserving of this roster spot more. I think that Walker Jenkins is, I mean, he's already on a rehab assignment at single A. I would be a little upset if he's not up by the end of July, honestly. But I don't really feel that way about Gabby Gonzalez, I guess. And maybe the Kyler Fedko call up is the wake up call I needed to realize that.
Yeah, I mean Gonzalez, I think gets overhyped just because he was a top 100 prospect when the Twins traded for him. He was, a huge piece of that Jorge Polanco deal, but I think there's a reason that Seattle is willing to deal him. He's continued to have those same weaknesses and hasn't really developed into the type of slugger he needs to be to fill the role that the Twins had hoped for him. And to be honest, Kyler Fedko has just been orders of magnitude more productive than Gabriel Gonzalez over the last couple of seasons. He's also a lot older, and so the window to see what you have in him is a lot shorter. And Fedko's also a better defender. He's more versatile. He can play first. He can kind of play second. He can moonlight in center field. He can be a solid corner outfielder. Gabby Gonzalez is going to be kind of a liability in a corner, and you don't really feel good about playing him anywhere. And so it puts a ton of pressure on his bat. Not even with that's before we even get to the base running, where Kyler Fedko can legitimately be a threat on the base pass. He can steal some bags. Gabby Gonzalez really clogs up the bases. He's not quick. He's not a base stealer at all. I think there's plenty of reasons to say Fedko is probably the better player, better suited for the big leagues right now. And maybe you let Gabriel Gonzalez sit in AAA for a year or two and see if he can develop.
Do you think this really even ends up mattering? So, like, Alan Roden, we mentioned, is on a rehab assignment, should be back at AAA soon. Do you think there's a world where Alan Roden isn't up within 2 to 3 weeks of being back at AAA? And if he is up, is there a world where Kyler Fedko is not the corresponding move?
So I think he will be up very quickly. I do think there's a world where it's not Fedko as the corresponding move, just because, I mean, like we talked about, the Twins need right-handed complements to all these left-handed hitting quarter guys. Beyond Alan Roden, they also still have Trevor Larnach playing in a corner. Longer term, you have Roden, Emmanuel Rodriguez, Walker Jenkins. You're going to need probably at least two right-handed hitting complements to those guys that can play the outfield. And so the Twins do have a need to kind of figure out who these right-handed thumpers are going to be. And I think the Twins will give Kyler Fedko at least some sort of audition to make sure, or to see if he can be a right-handed complement to these guys. And so I could definitely see the corresponding move be like, honestly, Austin Martin getting sent down if he's still performing the way he is. You could probably send down, I don't know, Ryan Kreidler if you needed to, or Tristan Gray. Tristan Gray has made 6 errors in 21 games at shortstop this year and is not the greatest hitter. There's a lot of options. As we've established, there's a pretty bad roster offensively. And so I think if they have any hope that Fedko could be a part of the future, they'll just keep him up.
I know he's been extremely protected and sheltered by platoons, but Ryan Kreidler hasn't been the worst hitter in the league. I mean, he won the Twins the game today. He came in, he pinched hit, and had a single and a double in 2 at bats. Drove in 2 runs, I believe, at least the game-winning run. Either way, like, I think I could live with a Ryan Kreidler full-time shortstop job for a while because, I mean, that might look more ugly against righties, but it's not like Tristan Gray looks very pretty against righties either. And I would do pretty much anything at this point to get more young guys more chances in the majors.
Yeah, and also it doesn't really matter because I think they're just keeping the spot warm for Culpepper, who probably will be up in the next couple weeks. Anyways, I do think Kreidler's a good enough defender and versatile enough that he does have a role on a good team. Like, he is the kind of guy that I think every team in baseball could use one Ryan Kreidler on their bench to kind of be a utility guy, fill in anywhere, just be a good ball player. He doesn't hit a ton, but he just kind of can pick it anywhere. He can cover a lot of spots, and he just plays smart, good fundamental baseball. Uh, he's just a fun guy to watch in kind of a weird, like gritty way. Like he's definitely not the most talented guy on the team, but
Right off the bat, the more you kept describing him, I'm just picturing Chris Taylor in the Dodgers years when they were going to World Series. And I actually don't know if he ever won one with them because he didn't.
he did. He
I think he
won
wasn't.
World Series MVP one year.
Oh, wait, was that the 20 World Series?
Yeah, 20 or 21. I don't know. But he definitely was a big part of those teams.
No, 100%. I mean, the Dodgers, like, weirdly were full of guys like that. They had Chris Taylor, they had Kike. This last year, they had Miggy Rowe, who I guess is more of really just a shortstop backup. But, I mean, those guys are impossible to not root for, you know?
Well, Miguel Rojas, you cannot root for a variety of reasons. He's
Yeah,
not the greatest.
I guess he doesn't quite fit our category so well.
Yeah, and Chris Taylor did pop like 20, 25 bombs and then signed like a $60 million contract in free agency. Like he started out that way and then developed into a legit like startable player. But yeah, definitely point taken there. Ryan Kreidler, I think I would like to see stay up. I feel less confident in Tristan Gray. Overall, I mean, just kind of doing our mid-year recap of these prospects, I think the Twins system remains strong. Definitely a top 10-ish system. Some of these arms step forward, or if Walker Jenkins develops some more pop, you could potentially say they're a top 5 team or a top 5 farm system in the league. Especially if you're bullish on Emmanuel Rodriguez, or if you're factoring in young AAA talent that's not a prospect anymore. But overall, it's more of a really good system than truly elite. I do think it's worth noting, and we've talked about this before, but the Twins will add quite a bit to this system in the near future. We're less than a month from the draft. The Twins hold the number 3 overall pick and 3 picks in the top 80. And so there will be a lot of reinforcements coming. And I think we still have some reasons to believe in this team over the longer term, especially, you can never trust a poll lad, but if they actually spend some money on this team and get back up to respectable levels, or if there's a salary floor and they're forced to spend some money on this team, it's looking a lot more promising.
I'm excited for the puzzle building we'll be doing after the trade deadline because we're already sitting here trying to talk through call ups, demotions, how to get all of our AAA guys who are going to see at bats this year up into the majors together. Imagine how much worse that's going to get once well, I mean, I guess we'll fill or create some spots at the trade deadline by trading away some guys, but in general, it's just only going to get more crowded after the trade deadline. I imagine the Twins are going to continue on their trend from last season of targeting guys who are upper minors or already established major league players. So I do think this Twins team is going to continue to look radically different week to week, month to month this season. But post trade deadline, I think it's going to be a bit of a war zone.
Yeah, I mean it already is. It's just a war zone of guys that we don't like and are not part of the future plans. It's like, God, who are we gonna keep between Tristan Gray and Ryan Kreidler, man? And the answer is, who cares? Why are you talking about this, nerds?
Exactly. I guess right now it just doesn't feel like a war zone because there's too much bad news bears energy around this team. Like we don't expect these guys to be good. We are like legitimately Tristan Gray goes out there and boots a ball. I'm like, boy, Tristan Gray. That's what you're here for. So yeah, it is tough to take these guys seriously, even though most of these guys are probably getting the first extended look in their major leagues in their career. I mean, I don't think Tristan Gray or Ryan Kreidler have really ever been moving like this before in the major leagues. So it's fun because to them, this is like the peak of their career. This is their chance to shine and make a moment. And to us, this is just another week in Twins history.
Well, I mean, Ryan Kreidler, had 200 plate appearances before the season. However, this is by far his most plate appearances in a season. And that's a product of, his highest WRC plus in a year before this was 38. And only half of his 4 seasons did he have a WRC plus above 0. So.
Hell yeah. How? No, actually, how? How is that possible?
Well, okay, we're just going to talk batting average. He hit 171 in his debut in 2022, then 111 in 2023, 119 in 2024, 105 in 2025. He's all the way up to 222 this year.
Hey, that I guess that shows something like determination, progression.
Hey, developmental success story, Ryan Kreidler. That's what the Twins do. They can develop a 28-year-old borderline marginal utility man. Let me tell you, they do that with the best of them. Just ask Cody Clemens.
If he keeps progressing at this rate, he's going to be Ted Williams by the time he's 35.
It's true. His WRC plus went up 120 from last year. He could put up the greatest offensive season of all time next year.
We are actually witnessing Aaron Judge in a Twins uniform.
You ever watch The Natural? That's Ryan Kreidler right there. He's going to start shattering some lights.
Well, I, for one, cannot wait to see that out of Ryan Kreidler. So, unfortunately, we are going to reach the end of yet another episode because that'll get us one sleep closer to the natural Ryan Kreidler. As always, we appreciate you guys listening, especially through some of these sillier, goofier weeks like we've had this last week, like we're going to continue to have. So hopefully you guys like this style of podcast because it's going to keep coming. If you do, as always, you can find us on Spotify, on YouTube, on Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. We're on Twitter, the Matt and Eric Talk Twins podcast. Me and Matt are both still rarely, occasionally, somewhat active individually on Twitter.
I did get into an argument, a nice, healthy debate with Kalen Culpepper's alleged brother on Twitter this week.
Hell yeah. Do you feel that you won this debate against Kalen Culpepper's alleged brother?
Yeah, I mean, he was telling me that the Twins should draft Dylan Floro instead of Rock Chalowski if Chalowski's there at 3 because the Twins have too many infielders already. And why do they need another shortstop when they have Kalen Culpepper? And I was like, big dog, Rock Chalowski's been the 101 favorite all year long. The Twins have a million arms. Take the infielder. Yeah. I think I won. I think he was biased, if I had to guess.
So we are sure this is, in fact, Kalen Culpepper's brother then?
I mean, as sure as we can be about a guy named Tyler Culpepper on Instagram who repeatedly says he's Kalen Culpepper's brother. I'm going to take his word for it. Do I have doubts? Yes.
I do too, but at the same time, if he was fighting with you on Twitter, he might be listening right now. Gone down the rabbit hole, found the podcast. So, what's up, Tyler Culpepper? Tell your brother we're big fans.
Yeah. Yo, what up, Ty? We're not drafting Dylan Floro. Wait, Dylan Floro? Tyler? Dylan Floro? Don't draft Dylan Floro. Bring him back.
All right. Well, if you want to hear more of Matt's thoughts on drafting Dylan Floro, you will find him on Twitter somewhere talking to somebody who might be somewhat important. But
I need to remember now. It's Flora, but what's his first name? Because I don't want the Twins to draft Dylan Floro. You remember the Jorge Lopez trade for Dylan Floro? And Floro
sure
god awful.
Jackson Flora is who we're looking for.
Yeah, okay. Thank God. We're not dealing with a reincarnated side armor. This has got to be one of our weirder episodes.
And on that note, we thank you for listening, and we hope that we will continue to see you next week.